The challenge.
Donald J. Trump is now president of the United States.
The controversy. The debate.
You are so tough. Your toughness is really intimidating.
Is now here. Let's go.
I just ask our audience a question, first of all. If you'd raise your hands. How many of you believe in God? Okay, a forest of hands. So, Richard Dawkins, these people are deluded. Every single one of them.
Well, I fear that's right, yes. I would say it's rather like the phenomenon of the imaginary friend that children have and that comfort them and console them. But there's actually not the slightest shred of evidence that any kind of supernatural being exists. So I'm sorry to say, deluded, yes.
Deluded. How can so many people be wrong?
Well, there was a time when everybody believed that the world was flat. There was a time when everybody believed that the sun whizzed round the earth. People are very, very frequently deluded. And by the way, of course, there was a time when people believed in Zeus and Apollo, and in other parts of the world they believed in Thor and Wotan. People have believed in fairies and leprechauns. Everybody in this room, I would guess, knows what it's like not to believe in the God of some other religion. You know that if you happen to be born in the Middle East, you'll probably be Muslim. And people who are born in the Middle East believe equally fervently in their God. They can't both be right. There are so many different gods that people have believed in throughout history.
So what people believe is really an accident of geography?
Exactly right, yes.
Friedrich Nietzsche famously said that God was dead, and Sigmund Freud can be rendered as having said that God was dad. And I think both of them are probably right. The concept of God is like everything else in our vocabulary, man-made. It's an invention of human beings. Unless you take the view that God made us, in which case it'd be a lot to explain. Why did we in that case make so many gods? It does seem to be very much more probable that men and women made many gods than that any one God made all men and women and the rest of creation. And as well as being man-made, it's fear-made. It is the unexpressed or partially expressed wish for a protector, a parent, someone who will never desert you, someone who will do in a way you're thinking for you, especially on questions of moral philosophy. At its best, it's that. It's a wish to be loved more than you probably deserve. And at its worst, it's the underdeveloped part of the human psyche that leads to totalitarianism, that wants to worship and that wants a boss, that wants a celestial dictatorship. And that's the bit that's now threatening to destroy our secular civilization. And so you're quite right to start where you do. It used to be believed, the number of gods now is infinite, and a new god is created almost every day by some cult or other, but it used to be that. There was a belief that gods were in the trees, in the woods, in the springs, in the sea, in the clouds, and so forth. Polytheism of a kind. Then something a bit more polytheistic like Olympus, where there was at least a location for the divine, but it was multifaceted. And then monotheism, getting it down to one. So I regard this as progress of a sort, because they're getting nearer the true figure all the time.
I actually agree.
Why shouldn't there be something? As you say, if there wasn't, then we wouldn't be here. But the question, why is there something rather than nothing? The origin of the something, the origin of the cosmos, was, I suspect, an extremely simple event. And simple events are very simple to understand and explain. Once upon a time, not that long ago, a couple of centuries ago, the question would not have been, why is there something rather than nothing? The question would have been, why is there all this magnificent life? Why are there trees? Why is there grass? Why are there birds? Why are there humans? Darwin answered that question and blew out of the water the theistic answer to that question. Theists are now driven back to this much, much more simple question. Why is there something rather than nothing? Everything else is either explained or well on the way to being explained. We're left with just one little tiny smidgen of a gap in which God is alleged to be to be hiding. But even if you invoke a supernatural creator to explain why is there something rather than nothing, you still explained absolutely nothing because you're left without an explanation for that God himself.
Richard Dawkins believes in evolution from simplicity to complexity.
What?
But critics like Michael Behe argue for irreducible complexity, suggesting some biological systems are too complex to have evolved gradually. Stephen C. Meyer also questions the timeline for small changes to lead to the complexity we see today by rigorously testing the number of living organisms in comparison to the amount of time evolution has had to bring about these small-scale variations, and proves this theory of evolution to fail the test of literal time. And both arguments here challenge Dawkins' view of slow, progressive evolutionary change. Creationists are not denying microevolutionary processes. Rather, they're saying small-scale variations do not account well for the origin of the life of the first cell. As for the argument of serving the God you were born amongst, atheists can philosophize all they want, but I say let's let the one and only God, the man who is the center of all human history, be the deciding factor of the evidence of himself and other gods existing. As John 14:6 says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And that's that.